not adjust your tracking. You are now listening to the VH Saturday podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the VH Saturday podcast, the show where we discuss the strange, unusual, odd, and obscure VHS tapes that we find through thrift, gift, and grift. My name is Henry.
Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. I'm Allison.
So this week we watched two tapes of something that I had no idea existed, but apparently they have quite a following.
Yeah, we had a double feature of Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater.
We watched two of them. We watched The Little Mermaid and The Three Little Pigs. We got these over at Al's Music, Movies, and Games, and it caught our eye because we just see The Three Little Pigs starring Billy Crystal, Jeff Goldblum, and Valerie Perrin, and the box just captured our eyes because it says no other children's series has ever been written, produced, directed, and acted by more Oscar, Tony, and Emmy-winning artists than Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater.
Yeah, so this show, apparently a lot of people are nostalgic for it. I was born in 91, so I did not grow up watching this. Apparently it started airing on Showtime back in 1982, so it was one of the first original children's programming on cable, alongside shows like Fraggle Rock on HBO a couple years later. This show has won tons of awards. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot. How many videos are in this series? I want to say like 12.
It was like 12.
Yeah.
It's been re-released a few times. We have the second release by Razzmatazz. There was a release beforehand, and then it was also put on DVD. Some of it apparently is for streaming. And like I said, like you mentioned earlier, like with the reference, there's a whole video that went viral like 10 years ago of just Shelley Duvall's intro to all the episodes. And I had no idea what this was from until literally like an hour or two ago. But I posted these on my personal social media, and I had a ton of people saying they were super nostalgic for them. Some people had watched them in school. Some people were like, what the fuck is that?
Some people were even like, hey, can you send those to me because I'm collecting those tapes and I need them.
One person's like saying, I collect those. Here's my collection. I need those. Okay, fine. You can get them after we fucking watch these for the show. But
yeah, well, apparently, so another thing that's really charming is when we got these tapes, on the inside, there's all these like little pieces of paper, little inserts, and one that I really liked was, this is like a folded piece of paper. It says, "It's magical. Purchase all 12 volumes and receive The Princess Who Had Never Laughed for free." So maybe our friend who's collecting these, they have one of these little, you're supposed to like fill this out with your proof of purchase of all your other Fairy Tale Theater tapes.
Hopefully Razzmatazz will still honor the stuff.
Could you imagine if we ended up like finding all of them, mailing it to them?
You get this beautiful library case to house all your VHS
you get a box.
So you create a box set. No, that reminds me, actually, like in the mid 90s, I had the Speed Racer movie VHS tape, and they had a contest of sorts where you crack this riddle with your decoder watch the tape came with.
Oh my god. You
submit it in, and they send you a blueprint of the Mach 5.
Oh my gosh.
And I sent this in 97. The tape came out like 93. I waited all fucking summer, and then they sent me back just a letter saying that it's not valid anymore.
No.
Yeah.
I have actually only ever once done something along those lines. When I was a kid, I remember Gatorade had this thing where like there were codes on the inside of the cap, and if you got like a certain code, you could mail it in and get a prize. And I remember I actually won like a little Gatorade hand towel.
Nice.
But that's the only thing I ever won in the mail. But yeah, I don't think Razzmatazz Entertainment owns the rights to these anymore. If I recall, it was, I don't know. Oh, I think before Razzmatazz owned it, it was like some company that turned into a Hallmark Entertainment eventually. Oh yeah, okay, not to be confused with Razzmatazz Entertainment, who is a ventriloquist company in
Ventriloquism and Magic. In Florida.
In Florida.
You could just...
Wow. Yeah, if you Google Razzmatazz Entertainment, you'll probably get different results.
But one thing that also came with that I thought was really cool was a coloring sheet.
Oh, yeah.
You get to color this magical castle,
Mm-hmm.
Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, and you mail it to the reverse side before March 20th, 1997.
Wow.
And you entered to win a sweepstakes for a savings bond.
Fairy Tale Theater Color to College Sweepstakes.
That actually does warm my heart.
That's a $5,000 scholarship that, like, all you had to do was just, like,
as a kid, color it in. Like,
color in this castle, and they were like, yeah, okay, sure.
I got a scholarship when I was a kid, but it was only for $500. Like,
Oh.
that was my first scholarship.
That's like one book.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
That's like one book.
fuck. There's one book.
And then there was also this little insert for
Sports Illustrated for kids.
Yeah, a subscription to Sports Illustrated for kids. So I've never seen a VHS case packed full with so many different things.
I've seen a few, but not that many.
This is a lot.
There's quite a few.
That's
there.
like 3 different things in one case.
So yeah, the first one we watched though was The Little Mermaid. No, we watched
the Three Little Pigs.
3 Little Pigs.
Because we were like, Jeff Goldblum is the big bad wolf, and I need to see this.
Yeah, so we had Billy Crystal, Stephen Furst, Fred Willard, Jeff Goldblum, Valerie Perrin, Doris Roberts. It is literally nothing but real deal actors.
Mm-hmm.
It's a children's
Film
show.
actors.
Yeah, film actors, not just TV show actors or anything else like that. And this is from the 80s, and then I'm like, wait, who the fuck is that? And we like Google it and like look at IMDb, and it's like, oh, that's that fucker.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
we just don't recognize them because we're used to seeing them old.
yeah. It's
This
like
is when they were young.
40 years ago. It's insane. Like one of the guy who played the neighbor on Friends in the 90s, like all of a sudden, like, oh,
Yeah.
he played
The guy selling the bricks and the straw.
yeah, the marketplace
Yeah.
guy.
The little piggies do go to market in this.
There's a lot of liberties here, but that just makes sense because The Three Little Pigs is a very, very simple story. You can sum up in like 5 sentences.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm sorry. I'm dying to make this joke. So I want to say it was one of the producers. Yeah. One of the producers on Fairy Tale Theater is the legendary Fred Fucks.
Fred Fucks.
Which some of you may recognize from the Angry Video Game Nerd. There's like a running gag about Fred Fucks.
Fred Fox! Oh my god, Fred Fox!
But yeah, this is so it starts out right with 3 little pigs inside of a house, and we got the fat lazy one. He's definitely fatter. That was Fred Willard.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's greedy.
No, wait. Was he the? No. Stephen Furst was the fattest one.
Yeah, the fat greedy pig.
He's reading a book.
Who builds his house out of straw?
Yeah, and he's building out of straw because it's quick and cheap, and it's like foreshadowed right there in the beginning because he's reading a book called The Lazy Pig's Guide to Becoming Rich, and I immediately called. I was like, he builds a house out of straw.
Yeah, he just calls it. He's like, that one. Yeah, he's gonna build out of straw. I'm like, okay, we're just calling it right now.
Then we get introduced to Fred Willard, his character. He's a less rotund,
less corpulent. He's less corpulent.
But he doesn't ham it up quite yet. I feel like
he doesn't ham it up.
I feel that Fred Willard steals the show in this.
I disagree. I think Jeff Goldblum steals it. Now, this was before Jeff Goldblum's big breakthrough, which Jurassic Park?
I feel like it was The Fly.
The Fly?
I feel like it was The Fly.
Okay.
In the 90s, he was in a lot more films. Because after The Fly, which was late 80s, then he goes into Jurassic Park in 93. And then in 96, he was in Independence Day.
When did The Fly come out?
I want to say 88. 86.
86.
Yeah, so
this was in 84 or 85?
Yeah.
I want to say 85.
The tape says 84 on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
84. Copyright 1984, Platypus Productions, Inc., Gaylord Production Company. Am I immature? I'm sorry. It makes me laugh.
Platypus Productions, yeah. But
Oh my god.
then we get introduced though to Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal's character is Larry the pig, and he's an artist for some reason.
And he plays oboe just in the middle of the living room.
He's like playing oboe and they're telling him to shut the fuck up. And they don't have a big house. And the mom comes home, who is played by Doris fucking Roberts, who you will recognize from Everybody Loves Raymond. I recognize her from Grandma's Boy.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a lot of things.
Yeah, she's a treasure.
But like, it's hard to tell who's who because there's a lot of very well done makeup, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And it was like, they only introduced by name at first, like a couple of the actors on the box. And so we're watching, I was like, is that Doris fucking Perkins? I mean, Doris Roberts?
Who's Doris Perkins?
I don't know who the fuck Doris Perkins is. I don't know where that fucking came from.
She's on Facebook and legacy.com.
And
obituaries. Rest in peace, Doris Perkins. We barely knew ye.
And there's one from Redmond over by us.
Wow, small world.
At Smart Cremation Tributes.
Jesus Christ.
Everyone named Doris Perkins is dead. But
anyway,
Doris Perkins.
Doris Roberts is the sweet pig mom, and she comes in
from work.
and she's like, "Oh, come get dinner, boys!" And they all sit down at the table. They're like, "Yay, slop!" And before they even start eating, she's like, "Oh, by the way, it's time for you boys to move out."
And they're like whining and crying and doing wee. I want to stay home, but they are clamoring to stay home, and she literally says, "I can't afford you anymore." Like,
which, okay, okay, that's bullshit, because you'll notice that their dad isn't in the picture. He passed away, but apparently he left them all an inheritance of $1 million each and just buried it in the mud. And so then she's like, "Okay, it's time for you to move out. Here's $1 million from your dad."
So then they start walking out, and Billy Crystal says they should pool their money together. There's no point in like separating. You could just have one super cool house together, just live together as the brothers.
You know what's really weird? So earlier we were watching this video about Fry's Electronics.
Oh yeah.
And kind of like the same thing happened, right? That like their dad made like $14 million from his Fry's supermarket chain. And then when he sold the company off, he gave $1 million each to his 3 sons. And then the one son was like, "I'm going to make an electronics store." And he convinced his 2 brothers to contribute to invest their $2 million. And that's how Fry's Electronics got started.
He made a computer store because he was a computer science major.
Yeah.
He knew how to run a business from his dad, and he was a computer science major. I was like, this makes sense.
Oh my God.
The 3 little pigs. So,
rest in peace, Fry's Electronics.
But the next thing that happened was they were like, "Fuck you, Larry," aka Billy Crystal. "I'm gonna go east and I'm gonna go west," and they all go off and do their own thing. Then we see
they go to the market to try to like find materials to build their house.
They all go different directions, but they all end up at the same market somehow.
Yeah.
We see Stephen Furst's character Furst. He goes there and he finds the dealer.
We see Stephen Furst first.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We see him go to the dealer, and he wants to buy straw because it's cheap. And the guy's like, "Don't you want something more robust?" He's like, "No, straw, it's fucking cheap. Give me the straw."
Yeah, he's like, "Nah, that'll do.
Yeah, and
that'll do, pig." God damn it.
The vendor literally tries to tell him, "You should try something more robust than straw.
Something substantial."
And he's like, "No, fuck it, it's cheap. I want it cheap and fast." So then he goes and builds a straw house. And then we see Fred Willard there, and he is at the bar. There's a root beer bar that's just there, and he's just drinking root beer, talking about not caring about the world. He's not even gonna build a house.
He's a womanizer. That he just wants to spend all of his money hanging out at the root beer bar, and this like super hot lady pig comes up.
Her name's Tina, played by Valerie Perrin,
who was
the first woman to appear naked on American television. She's a former Playboy playmate.
Yeah, and they definitely, it's not like they're like, oh, here's a serious acting role for you, ma'am, you respected female actress. They're like, you get to play a sexy pig.
She's dressed sort of like Victorian.
Yeah, like the corset and the big like hoop skirt, umbrella, the whole
weird floopy hat.
Floopy.
And she's definitely got like cleavage showing.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
mad pig cleavage.
She's painted pink.
Painted pink with a big nose. But there's saxophones playing in the background when she's on screen, so we know that she's sexy. And she walks up to the bar, and you know, the womanizer pig is all like, hey baby, why don't you go on a date with me or something? And she's like, well,
do you have a house?
And he's like, no. And she's like, well, no house, no date.
Call me when you have a house. And she gives him a business card that just says Tina
and like her number on it.
I imagine there was a number on it in the fanciful world of the fairy tale theater, but the card literally just says Tina in giant font.
Yeah, and so then immediately he's like, dude, I gotta get a house. And so he runs down to the market and he's talking to the guy, and the guy's like, well, we got these bricks here that'd be really great for building a house. And he's like,
no, not cheaper. I need faster. And he's like, well, how about these sticks? He's like, the sticks would work, but you know, if you put sticks up, you should get some of this corrugation, and it has like steel siding. And he's like, nah, sticks are fine.
I just need a house, man. And he installs a telephone in his house.
Much later, but it's so he can finally call Tina and be like, all right, I got a house. Let's go. Conditions met. And then we see Billy Crystal. He buys bricks. Billy Crystal's character also draws up a blueprint because he's an artist. I guess that makes sense why they made him an artist earlier.
He has a book on how to build a house, and it's like,
first get some bricks.
Page 1, like, get brick. No, the first step was get land.
Yeah.
Get some land. Step 2 was like make a plan. Step 3, get your materials. Step 4, build the house. So he gets to step 4 and he's like, what, that's it? Like no further instructions, just build the house?
First you draw a circle. Then you draw the rest of the owl.
First I draw this head, then I erase more of the detailed parts, and there, a perfect circle.
So he builds his like house, and this is around the time we get introduced to Jeff Goldblum. He's the big bad wolf. He lives in a cave, and Brandis Kemp does the voiceover as his nagging wife, who says that coyotes are coming over. They like pig, go get a pig, and he's like, I don't like the coyotes. And she's like, I don't care. Go get a pig. And he's like smoking cigar, drinking beer.
Yeah.
Like just popping open like a bottle, just chugs, like fine. He like downs the rest of this bottle of beer, like he goes and leaves. And he's got this big fur coat on. Then he goes and finds Tina's on the way to Stephen's house, on the way to Fred Willard's house. So then he
and she's hitting on him. She's like, oh, you're a big, strong wolf. And then he's just like, I'm married.
So this is the part, though. This is the part where we get Fred Willard installs the phone. He installs the phone in his house and he calls Tina. And this is around the time I said, what point and what time frame does this come and take place? Because they got a phone, right? And then,
like what in history?
Yeah. Well, what time frame would this be taking place in?
I mean, it seems like a pretty simple society. Judging on the phone that he's using, it's like one of those like old.
It's a very old phone, like a separate head.
Like before a rotary, like even older than that. What are those phones called?
It's, I think, just a vintage kind. You know what they're called.
Super vintage.
The kind where it's like a stick and it's a stick,
and you hold the piece up to your ear.
And it's got a hook that the earpiece hangs on.
Yeah,
and you pull it off.
Yeah, and he even had trouble using it.
Yeah,
he had to like ask the guy installing the phone.
But he acted like he had a phone before. He's like, I've had a phone before. He's like, this is the part I talk in, right?
Yeah.
So that means I listen to this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's why I question it, because we see Tina's house and it's a suburban home. It is a modern suburban home. She has like a couch and everything. I think they really just filmed that part in Valley Parent's house. They just took the camera crew over and just filmed it in Valley Parent's house.
Yeah.
It looked like a very modern early 80s home.
Yeah.
But he calls her, he's like, hey, it's me, Paul. And she's like, oh, thinks it's a different Paul. He's like, no, Paul from the market? She doesn't even remember this guy.
She's like, oh, that Paul.
And he's like, I got a house, bro. Let's go.
She's like, well, all right. I said I would date you if you got a house, so I'm committed.
Good on her.
She's a woman. She's a sow of her word.
So she starts walking over there, and this is when the big bad wolf blows down. He's looking for a pig still. He goes and finds
the straw house. And he blows it down.
He huffs and he puffs and he blows it down.
And he's looking for the pig. The pig's like hiding under the straw, so he doesn't see him. And he's like, well, guess I gotta find another pig. And then he walks off. And we all know how the story goes.
Is that when he finds the straw steakhouse?
Yeah, so
before or after Tina?
It's
such a short story. It gets much more convoluted than...
Yeah, so like The Three Little Pigs is a really simple story, but because these episodes are like an hour long, they have to kind of flesh it out with more story and character and...
like a real story.
Yeah, so they took some liberties with it. I think they did a good job.
I think they did a good job. So then he goes and he gets to Fred Willard's house. He blows it down. Similar story. Fred Willard is like hiding in the rubble. He's like, well, fuck, I gotta go find another pig. And then he leaves. He finds Tina. He starts flirting with Tina, or Tina starts flirting with him. And he's like, I just want to eat you.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. But she wants to go out with him, but he just wants to eat her. And then she's like, I'm married. I just want to eat you for dinner. And she's like, well, no. And she like leaves. He's like, I gotta go find another pig now. He tries to go home and he tells his wife, why don't we just have some squirrels?
Yeah.
And she's like...
Oh, he says this while, like, literally, like, drinking a beer.
He comes home exasperated from trying to find pigs, and he, like, plops down on a chair that they have in front of their cave.
Opens up this conspicuous brown glass bottle without a label on it.
It's in a cooler of ice with other brown bottles.
Brown glass bottles. And he pops off the cap, and he starts drinking it. So, why don't we just have some squirrels or something? And she's like, no, we're having pigs, go out and get a pig. Like, she's just yelling at him.
He rolls his eyes, he chugs the rest of the bottle, throws it, and like lights a cigar and fucking leaves.
Yeah, it's crazy because like children's media, you cannot make any references to like tobacco or alcohol, let alone any other kinds of drugs.
I think you can with alcohol now, but you have to like, you know, call it root beer and stuff.
Well, that's what I mean, that like they can allude to it, you know, there are like definitely parallels, but when it comes to like actually like alcohol and tobacco, they don't.
Right, where tobacco, yes, but I feel like, you know, you can allude to alcohol.
Sure. But
and
like,
I think it's because alcohol is, even though I feel like it's more imitatable, it's not as frowned upon because it's like, everybody fucking drinks. But versus like tobacco, it's like, oh, it's super addictive, and then it's also gonna kill you.
So on that same line, something that's really interesting is that so Razzmatazz Entertainment distributed the particular tapes that we have, as well as Cabin Fever Entertainment, and that company is actually owned by U.S. Tobacco.
Really?
Yeah, UST Inc., a holding company, the biggest producer of snuff and chewing tobacco, whose subsidiaries included U.S. Smokeless Tobacco Company and International Wine and Spirits Ltd. They own Cabin Fever Entertainment. And I believe later they sold that company to Hallmark. But they didn't have anything to do with this when the show was being produced.
That was about to be my next question.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Big Bad Wolf leaves, and then we see Tina get to the house, and you got two pigs like hiding in a fucking log. And she's like, "This is your house? It's a pile of sticks." And he's like, "What?" Shit went down. And then they decide to go hoof it over to I'm not even trying for all these fucking puns, like hamming it up, fucking hoofing it. Like,
you made a good one last night too. Like there was a scene when like Tina came over to the guy's house and he's like on the phone with her or something, I don't know, like he's talking to her and you're just like, "Oh, want a pork?" It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Good one.
I don't even try. They just it's bad. Anyway.
Pig puns are so easy to make. Like,
so they get to Billy Crystal's house. And
the brick house.
And it's a very large house.
She mighty.
It's a large house. He's got like a wheelbarrow in front with like one of those like wheelbarrows that people put out of their house that they actually just fill with dirt and put some like plants in there.
It's like decorative.
It's
wheelbarrow.
A decorative wheelbarrow, and it's got like a paved fucking like walkway to the door.
Yeah, he put a lot of effort into his house.
It's like a legitimate really nice house.
Mm-hmm.
We missed it when the mom comes to the stick house. The mom came over to the stick house to see how they're doing. Mm-hmm. And then, because he was having a housewarming party, they all come over to the stick house and there's fucking nothing and there's no room. It's like, "This is fine. Look, I got the party place over there, over here. It's great." And then they all like dance, but they can't fucking move. And obviously, Fred Willard is he's a schlub.
Oh yeah, because Billy Crystal's character, he plays the oboe. So when they're having their dance party, like they're like, "Yeah, play us a song." And so he starts like playing the oboe, but the music that they put in over him playing is like a trombone or something. And just as someone who was in band for many years, that like triggers me. I'm like, that's not what an oboe sounds like.
So after that part, that's so forgettable. But I'm glad that Doris Roberts got another scene or so.
Yeah, she deserves it.
But then they get to Billy Crystal's house. Big Bad Wolf wants to huff and puff and blow the house down, and they start taunting him. "Not right here, my chinny chin chin." They're doing that, and he keeps trying. There's a really good effect. Remember, he blew down the first two houses where it was like shot in slow motion, and then
and the whole house just like collapses.
There's a good effect that they had. There's some kind of inflation device in the wolf costume, so when he inhaled, his chest, it like inflated and puffed out.
Yeah, so it was really cool. Like, honestly, a lot of the makeup and the costumes in this, like, if I was to watch this without any context of knowing who was in it, I probably wouldn't have caught on right away that it was Jeff Goldblum.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had no idea it was Jeff Goldblum. I mean, I knew it was Jeff Goldblum, but it doesn't look like him.
No, even on the cover, like you can't, like, because with the pigs, they just have noses on. But
they have noses and like a hood.
Yeah, the costumes they're wearing are like hoods to do like the pig ears and stuff, so you can still see their face. Although I have to say that, what's his name?
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard looks kind of like Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, because it doesn't say Fred Willard on the front.
No,
right? It says Billy Crystal, Jeff Goldblum, Valerie Perrin. Mm-hmm. So we got it. I'm like, who the fuck are the rest of these guys? And like, I posted a picture of like, this guy looks like Norm fucking Macdonald. And then like, one of my friends replied, "Oh, that's Fred Willard." And lo and behold, yeah, it is the legendary Fred Willard, but he doesn't get a front credit on the box for some reason.
Yeah, they totally screwed him.
The props, the backdrops, and the settings are all inspired by specific artists and children's book illustrators. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of really great stuff. There's a lot of care put into the presentation of these. So these are actually really interesting. I understand why that guy's like, "Oh, I want to collect these." These are like 100% well done. I know we tend to like make fun of shit on this show, but there's not a lot to make fun of. This is just an interesting piece of history that we found.
Yeah, like from the cover, we didn't know anything about Shelley Duvall's fairy tale theater. So like on first glance, it looks really low budget. And we were like, why are all of these big actors in this low budget theater production of the Three Little Pigs. It seemed really bizarre, but the more we dove into it and watched it, it's actually pretty charming, and they add to the story. There were some ways I didn't care for, like I didn't, like the whole womanizing pig angle. Like I was like, this is kind of weird.
Did we need to add a fourth pig that was a former Playboy playmate?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
That it's like a nod to maybe like parents watching this with their kids, because it did air on Showtime. There was a few jokes that were kind of like over a kid's head. That would be definitely over a kid's head. They made some reference to Peter, Paul, and Mary, which I'm not very familiar with, except for that fucking Britney Spears song 3 that came out a while back, and it was like a song about having a threesome. And in the chorus, she says, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I had to like look that up, and I was like, how dare you? It's a folk group. Yeah. Yeah, but it was used in like a threesome context. Well, they and I was like, oh god, that's what I'm thinking about when I hear that. Oh, because Peter, Paul, and Larry were the names of the pigs, right? Yeah. So then anyway, we get to the fucking brick house. He can't blow down, and Jeff Goldblum passes out, and they take advantage of the situation by putting together a plot to take out the pig. So they had... Take out the wolf. Yes, take out the wolf. So they had Fred Willard, because he knew how to... Oh, I forgot. He built his house out of sticks because, quote, girls like wood. Oh my god. Oh. That's what he said. I forgot, yeah. I forgot about that. Oh, jeez. So they ask him, like, you know how to build a ladder? He's like, yeah. So they put together a ladder that they... And then they just go camp. Billy Crystal goes onto the roof and waits for the big bad wolf to wake up. He's like, oh no, the wolf is awake. I'm up here on the roof. And then he's like, I'm gonna get up on that roof. I'm gonna get off on the roof. I'm gonna eat you. He's like, oh, how do I get up there? He's like, don't use the ladder. He's like, the ladder. What ladder? He's like, behind the bush there. No, to the left. Your other left. He's like literally directing him. And Jeff Goldblum tries to act like he's like, I'm gonna get off the roof, after the pig's like, you should come get me on this roof. And you should use the ladder. He's like, I'm gonna use the ladder. As if he comes to this conclusion on his own. He puts his ladder up. I was expecting the ladder to like break. It is made of sticks, isn't it? It was made out of actual lumber. Oh, okay. Like I thought it was gonna be a stick ladder, but no, apparently Fred Willard knows how to actually... Why didn't he just build a wood house? Because he was lazy. He wanted to get fucking laid. Oh, he was quicker. Yeah. But they did show him like cutting the sticks. Remember? He's like, yeah, he at least cut the sticks and was like, look at all the work I put into making these sticks and like house. all the pigs apparently know how to cut wood, because when we saw the straw house also, the like support beams were made out of like lumber, out of like 2x4s, and then they just used the sticks for like, and sticks and the straw to like be around it, which I guess, fair. They make a structural support, and then that makes more sense than just like, I'm gonna get some straw to just like prop it up somehow. So then they jump down and they light the fire, and they jump down the chimney. Light the fire, put it on a pot. They light the fire, and then they convince the wolf to jump down the chimney. Because the wolf is just like, where'd the pig go? I swear there was a pig up here. Where'd he go? And like, good thing I jumped down that chimney and got away from the wolf. Yeah, they literally have to direct him, don't jump down here. I'm inside the house with the other pigs. And he's like, I'm gonna go down the chimney. He jumps down, and then they had to give Tina something to do. So she has a pan in her hand, like a cast iron pan. They're like, get ready, Tina. She's like, yeah. And she's like posed and ready. He jumps down to the pot. They bonk him on the head. And then oh my god, they put him on a platter and put him in front of the cave where his wife lives. And they have him bound and gagged like a suckling pig. They have an apple in his mouth. Now, like, the story of the Three Little Pigs, they do kill the pig, the wolf. They do kill him. That's how it's supposed to be. And they eat him for dinner. And instead I thought they were just gonna kill him and eat him for dinner, and then they like put him like that in front of them. I was very disturbed when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, did they seriously like kill this wolf decorate him like a suckling pig, put him on a platter, and then deliver him to his wife? What the fuck kind of crazy shit is this?
I would have loved it if he was actually dead, but then
that was nuts. But then he woke up. And
he comes out of the like stupor he's in, you know, spits out the apple, and he realizes on his head he has this giant tumor like bump.
Like in cartoons when they get hit on the head and they have a big bump.
So there's that. That's the Three Little Pigs, starring Billy Crystal, Jeff Goldblum, and Fred Willard and Stephen Furst.
And Valerie Perrin. And Doris Roberts. And
many other
and that weird
actors.
Neighbor from Friends.
And there's more. There's like there's the telephone guy was a known actor. Just all of it. It's insane how they even get these guys to do it. But the next movie we watched was The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
But this one is, I think, a little bit less interesting, mostly because The Little Mermaid is a short story, but not as short as the Three Little Pigs. It is a story with a very clear setting, a very clear arc, definitive characters.
Yeah, I would say The Three Little Pigs is a fairy tale, but I would say that The Little Mermaid is a story.
Yeah, right.
It's like, you know what, the original Little Mermaid is what, like 40 something pages or something like that?
48 pages.
Yeah, whereas The Three Little Pigs is like a picture book, you know, you can make that.
Like I said, I could sum up The Three Little Pigs in 5 sentences, and have you have the entire fucking story.
But The Little Mermaid is a little more of a complex tale, but I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's just not nearly as interesting. It is much more accurate to the book than the Disney version is, but I feel like every version of The Little Mermaid that came out before Disney's 1989 version is much more accurate to the book.
So I think this was
2 years before.
87. Yeah, 87. Yeah, so the Disney version came out 2 years after this.
Yeah, and the Disney version made it so there's a happy ending where they get together. If you don't know the true ending of The Little Mermaid, if you never read the book, or if you've never watched any of the older adaptations, if you only watched the Disney ones, because I feel like every other version that has come after the Disney version matches Disney's ending.
Yeah,
I haven't seen anybody else do the real ending where the Sea Witch has an alternative plot for the Little Mermaid, that she gives her sisters a knife after they trade their hair to the witch. They don't mention that in this, but they're supposed to, they chop off their hair, they trade it to the witch gives them a knife, they give the knife to her, and she has to kill the prince. And when the blood from his heart strikes her feet, it turns back into a tail. Because if she doesn't, she turns into sea foam and just dies.
Yeah. So basically, her name is Pearl, and she's the youngest daughter of King
Neptune.
King Neptune under the sea. And it's really interesting that the way they try to portray them being underwater is they have these fans blowing in their hair, so their hair is like standing up all the time like it would if they were floating underwater. So I was like, that's a pretty nice touch.
Except when they're in the Sea Witch's cave.
Yeah.
But
there's not much of a current in a cave, so
exactly, makes perfect sense.
It's just a nice touch.
There's some chroma key effects they do. So they do some green screen to make them swim.
Yeah.
But you could tell they just had them like sit on like a box that they painted green, because the tail is like they're sitting down and they're like just waving their arms like they're swimming.
It's pretty cheap looking,
but that's fine. It's a children's show. It was good enough.
Yeah, otherwise I would say like all the sets are good, all the costumes are good, the makeup is good. Karen Black plays the Sea Witch in this, and I thought that she did a wonderful job. She had a couple lines that were, you know, a little funny. She's singing. She was just having a good time with it, and so I really liked her character.
Yeah, everyone had a really good time with this. I have nothing that's negative to really say. It was a good adaptation. Like, they even mentioned that when she gets her tail, when her tail turns to the legs, every time she steps, it's gonna feel like she's walking on glass. And in the book, that's because her tail literally, like, the scales fall off and it splits in half, and it's just raw skin that's stepping on, like, you know, the ground and shit. So that would definitely hurt. And they mentioned that of course gets, like I said, glossed over in the Disney version.
Yeah, this version is, I mean, it sticks to all of the brutal shit that's in the original story. I think it's good.
Princess Pearl is played by Pam Dauber. Treat Williams plays the prince. Helen Mirren is the other princess that Prince is in love with.
Yeah.
And King Neptune is played by Brian Dennehy.
Someone say my name?
Who are you?
I'm Brian Dennehy.
What? No, not fucking Brian Dennehy. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, bye.
So it hits all the points. And what I do love is like, they explain why the ship catches on fire with they're lighting off fireworks, and they show a guy carrying like a powder keg.
Yeah, the sailors on the boat.
They're carrying the powder keg to the cannon where they're shooting off the fireworks, and they show that it's like dripping like a trail of gunpowder. And then when they're like launching off fireworks celebrating the prince's birthday, the sparks hit the other trail, and it causes like a small fire, and that goes into the underground where they have all the other gunpowder stored, and causes an explosion. And we see people were in there, and they like get pulled out, they're like dying.
Is it still called underground if it's on a boat?
Yes. So
I mean, what do you call that? The basement?
the lower deck.
Oh.
It's literally what would be called a lower deck.
Yeah. Okay.
So they like abandoned ship, and like there's a lot of like back and forth of like it's comedic, and Princess is in love with this guy, and she saves him, washes puts him onto
the mermaid.
Yes.
Yeah, the mermaid is in the water watching the guys on the boat, specifically the prince. And she's like enamored with him, and then the ship blows up, and then he's drowning, so she saves him and brings him up to the shore.
And then she goes and talks to the sea witch. Sea witch is like, "Oh yeah, I know what you want. Yeah, you want that prince. So here's the deal." And she gives him the deal.
But it's a shitty deal. Let's be honest. It's like, okay, I'll give you legs. But one, it's going to hurt really bad when you walk on them. Two, you'll never be able to see your family again. 3, you won't be able to talk. And 4, if he falls in love with someone else, you will die.
I don't remember if they gave her a time frame. Like,
yeah, she did.
Yeah, she did.
Before she drank the potion, she's like, okay, but like, if he falls in love with someone else and they get married, when the sun comes up after their wedding, you will turn into sea foam.
I mean, like, did she give him like a week or whatever the fuck? Like, do you have like 5 days to make him fall in love with you? I don't know.
No, it was just like, if he falls in love with someone else.
Right. And so then we see her wash up on the beach, and the other princess had found the prince at the same place.
Yeah, so when the prince drowned and she brought him to the shore, he's passed out there, and then there's these
princess from another kingdom.
Yeah, and they're walking on the beach, and they find him, and then they bring him in. But I guess he was already a prince.
Yeah, he's a prince.
So he came back home.
Yeah, so she threw him onto the beach nearby his home, and then this other princess was there because they're the two kings were like, oh yeah, we can join our kingdoms if we get our kids to get married.
Classic kingdom shit.
And so she was already there, probably like, where the fuck is Andrew? And then she's like, oh fuck, Prince Andrew's like almost dying.
Yeah.
And then so they start, because then when they find her, she's like, this is right where I found you. But before that happens, they're talking about the joining of the kingdoms and stuff like that. And he's like, I think that's dumb. She's like, yeah, me too.
I don't want to just marry someone I don't know because it makes the kingdom stronger or whatever.
So they both don't want to get married, but that's also a point of like bonding. Like, we both agree on this.
Yeah.
This is fine.
I don't want to marry you. Yeah, me neither. Cool.
Let's get married. So they rescue her. They're like, oh fuck, let's rescue this woman. And then like they bring her in and they try to feed her, and she's like, oh, I just eat fish. After he tries to give her like bacon and sausage.
She's basically just like using miming to communicate, because she can't talk to them. They're like, where are you from? What's your name? And she can't say anything. They're like, oh, she can't speak.
And everything seems fine. And then like she gets dressed, and Princess, forget her name, but Helen Mirren starts getting kind of jealous when she's like, oh, you're out here now. And Helen Mirren can tell that Princess Pearl's trying to flirt with the prince.
Well, yeah, the prince is flirting with her too. The whole time he's just like, wow, isn't she beautiful? And it's like, bro.
It's like, dude, the girl
that's your fiance.
Yeah. And then he makes Helen Mirren start playing the piano as he dances around with Princess Pearl.
Yeah.
And you get then Helen Mirren just looking like pissed, but she's complying.
She's
like,
playing the piano like super hard, like she's getting pissed
super
off.
aggressive. And then they go out someplace, and then the prince is like, Helen Mirren said the craziest thing. She thinks you're in love with me.
No, he says this when so Pearl is out on her balcony at night, and she's looking out into the ocean, and her two sisters come up and start singing to her, and she's crying because she misses her home and her family. And that's when the prince comes in and is like, oh my gosh, like, are you crying? Don't cry. This is kind of where he brings that up, like, she thinks you're in love with me. You're not in love with me, are you? And she just kind of looks like,
yeah, she kind of nods, and he's like, oh, I thought you understood. Like,
yeah. And he's just like, well, you'll find somebody.
Yeah. It's the exact opposite of the Disney version where he falls in love with her.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa,
he's just
man.
like, you'll be fine.
He's like, you'll find somebody. Like, I'm marrying her. Like, I thought you understood that. Like, we're getting married, and but that's fine. Like, we were helping you out. Like, which fair. Like. And feels bad, man. He just led her on, like.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. He kept making all these comments about how beautiful she is and how adorable she is and all this stuff. And
he just meant it so innocently. Like, he's like, oh yeah, she's adorable. Like, I'm still gonna marry you, Helen Mirren.
Yeah. I do have to say, like, an overarching theme we see in these fairy tale theater is committed husbands. That, like, they have these opportunities to cheat and they just don't take them.
This is fair. Yeah. The big bad wolf is not that bad.
He's not that bad.
He also didn't want to get a fucking pig. He's like, dude, really? Like,
his wife is the big bad wolf here.
She's like insistent, and he's just like stuck with her. Is divorce a thing in wolves?
Wolf divorce.
Wolf divorce court. So,
that's my new band name.
So then the wedding's about to happen, right? And they're on the boat. They're getting married on the ship because he's like a sailor. That was his thing, looking for new land. And she's still there. She's tagging along. And that's when the sisters are like, hey, we made a deal with the witch. Here's the knife. You gotta kill him. And then they're sleeping together. And then she brings the knife into the room, and she's about to like stab him, but she's contemplating, and she can't do it.
Yeah, because like, so they get married at like nighttime or like later in the day.
Yeah.
And so then they, presumably consummate their marriage because they're laying in bed naked together.
When this ship's a rockin'.
Yeah. And so like, you can see that the sun is coming up.
Right.
And so she knows she's running out of time. And like, she has this knife from her sisters, and she's standing over him with the knife.
It's literally do or die.
Yeah. Like, I have to kill him or I will die. And she drops the knife and is just like, I can't do it.
They don't show her dissolve into like sea foam. They just kind of like
cowards.
They talk about it. We have Brian Dennehy like giving the narration, explaining, and they have like superimposed like headshots of her like smiling and shit. I don't think they showed like the prince going, hey, where the fuck is Pearl? The next morning.
The story just ends there.
Yeah,
that's it.
They should have been showing like, hey, where'd she go? What happened? What happened?
Maybe they could have, shown the funeral. I don't know, dude.
I would at least like to see some sea foam. Something. It really does feel strange how it's just very abrupt. Like, and she didn't do it. She died. She joined
Doris Pinkerton or whatever. What was the name we said earlier?
I don't remember. Doris Perkins?
Doris Perkins. She joins Doris Perkins in heaven.
Many Doris Perkins. But this again had like an all-star cast. You had, Lorraine Newman as Coral, and there's just not as many characters in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's not as many characters in this that are worth noting, because there was the captain, there was the first mate. Those were played by large actors as well, but they had such minor roles.
Yeah.
It's very strange because, like I said, it's 50 minutes. So this actually is the opposite effect from the Three Little Pigs, where this version of Little Mermaid, while being accurate to the book, still feels very rushed in comparison to a lot of other versions where it's like an hour and a half. I think you need like at least an hour and a half to properly tell the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, we watched the anime version.
Mm-hmm.
We had this moment where we wanted to watch like nostalgic stuff from our childhood.
I am a big fan of Toei Animation's 1978 version of the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and I never seen it, so he showed it to me recently, and it's like full length, right? Like an hour and a half.
Full length version of it. It's
1 hour 14 minutes.
Yeah. So
and they actually show boobs in that one too.
There's boobies in there.
Mm-hmm.
Anime titties. Very small anime titties, and I think
and you should not look at them in that way because
I believe she's like 14.
Yeah. So cut that shit out.
Japan. Okay, so I guess it's 1975, but 70 minutes. So it's at least 20 more minutes than this. So this is only a 50-minute tape, and that doesn't include the couple minutes of "Hi, I'm Shelley Duvall" at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So you definitely need a little bit longer to tell the full story properly, because this felt a bit rushed. Versus Three Little Pigs, where it's like, we got a 5-page storybook we're stretching out in 50 minutes.
They had to pad that one out.
Which I feel is probably easy. I don't know which one would be easier. Would it be easier to pad out the Three Little Pigs, or to cut things from the Little Mermaid?
I don't know. I feel like adding to the Three Little Pigs, because it's like, what do you even have to work with? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just so simple.
Such a simple story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently the Disney version cut out tons from the Little Mermaid, and they did just fine.
Absolutely, they made an absolute fuck ton of money off of that thing. And
yeah, I haven't really watched it since I was a kid. Apparently, my mom said I used to watch it on tape so much that it was annoying, but I really don't even remember much about it.
I loved The Little Mermaid as a child. It's literally one of my favorite stories. I really do enjoy it. Every form of The Little Mermaid I can watch. I liked the Disney version that came out the year after I was born. I watched it a lot. My mom will tell you that I used to sing the songs all the time. She makes fun of how I would pronounce it as a 3-year-old. Instead of under the sea, I would say under the he, because I couldn't pronounce C.
Oh.
She'll make fun of me for it still to this day. 30 something years later.
Do you remember the Little Mermaid animated series?
Yeah. The Little Mermaid animated series was really interesting because it was on the Disney Channel, and they had a deaf mute person of color mermaid.
Yeah.
So
so there's this podcast that I listen to, shout outs to Escape from Walt Disney, really awesome podcast where they listen to random stuff on Disney Plus. They did a Patreon month where someone recommended that they watch a very specific episode of the Little Mermaid animated series, and it was season 3 episode 3, and it was about this mad scientist doing crab experiments. And so there's this running gag in that show about crab experiments. And so as a podcaster now, I feel like I cannot mention the Little Mermaid without making a crab experiments reference. So, if you're interested in crab experiments, go check out that episode, and please do a crossover with us.
I watched the show a bit because I had Disney Channel for a bit when I lived in California still, but when we moved to Washington, we no longer had it because at that point Disney Channel was still part of a premium cable package instead of a basic cable package. So I watched a lot more Nickelodeon at that point, but I really did love The Little Mermaid. I watched the TV show, I watched the Disney Channel movie, the Disney movie a lot. I watched the anime version a whole lot.
You watched the sequel?
No.
Return to the Sea or whatever?
Oh
man, that's
That is something.
That will ruin it for you.
That is, how come I have not seen it? I saw like the preview of it. I don't remember what Disney movie I was watching, and it was like in the previews before now our feature presentation. Before that, and I was just like, nope, I am not watching that. That looks like shit. That's the one where she gets like a daughter, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
and she does like the same exact thing. It's basically just like that Disney direct-to-video sequel formula where they're like, they got a kid. The kid does the same thing.
The kid does the same thing with half the animation budget.
Exactly.
So,
hey, it's not as bad as Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time.
Is that real?
That's fucking real.
Fuck, okay. I have not watched any of those. The closest thing I think is actually the first one the first one they tried, which was, Return of Jafar.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the first time they tried doing that.
But I feel like people generally liked that movie.
Return of Jafar was not as good, but it was still okay.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, like in the pool of Disney direct-to-video sequels, it's not that bad.
I mean, at the same time, it's one of those things that it was their first time attempting that, so of course they put more effort into it to see if it sticks to the wall, and it did. So now it's like, cool, now we can crank out Lion King 2.5.
No, there was a Beauty and the Beast, like 2.5 or 1.5 or something. It was like Belle's Enchanted Christmas or Beast's Enchanted Christmas.
No,
it's so bad.
They did all kinds of shit like that.
Yeah, it's bad, dude.
Terrible. I don't watch any of those. I barely watch Disney movies. They're not really my thing.
Yeah, well, Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater.
Check them out. They're actually interesting. They are clearly designed to not only appeal to children, but as the tape implies in the previews, that children and also the children at heart.
Yeah, and if you're just a fan of theater, like you like watching a production. I mean, I've always been interested in theater. I love the way, like sets and costumes and all that stuff. Like I've seen what it takes for people to come together to build those things, and they look like plays. They look like plays, and they don't try to be anything more than that. So I respect that.
They're a well done play. Like there's definitely multiple camera angles, so don't think you're just looking at one static camera angle like a play.
No, it's made for TV.
It's a made for TV play. So the sets they're TV sets, but they're designed to look like theater sets that are designed by well-renowned storybook artists. So there's nothing negative here.
At the beginning of each tape, they show kind of like a preview of the other Fairy Tale Theater tapes to try to get you to buy all of them. And they showed one from the Beauty and the Beast, and I had a moment where I had to pause the tape because the Beast in the Fairy Tale Theater version looks just like Jean Cocteau, who is the original creator of La Belle et la Bête, the original Beauty and the Beast story. And so for a second I thought that it was like, a colored version of the original movie, but then when I was looking into it, apparently they did go to a lot of the source material when creating these. So the storybooks and all that, they really did take inspiration from all of that, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like Fred, not Fred Fox. No, I don't know why I was thinking Fred Fox. So the first episode was starring Robin Williams.
Yeah, the pilot episode.
The pilot episode was the Frog, Robin Williams in The Frog Prince, and that was the story that Shelley Duvall was reading when they were together making Popeye. Mm-hmm. And she thought it was interesting. She was, how do you feel about that? And he loved it. And so he starred in the pilot episode, and it worked out. And you'll see some of your favorite actors and actresses.
Mm-hmm. There's one where like Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens plays Pinocchio. Some of these have been directed by some really awesome directors too. Like we have Tim Burton, and I want to say like, was it Kubrick? No, Francis Ford Coppola. I'm like, I don't think she would work with Kubrick ever again.
Like, I can't imagine. Can you imagine Stanley Kubrick trying to do a fairy tale theater?
What story would he do?
It would definitely,
like Cinderella. Like those birds pecking out eyes and shit at the end, and they're cutting off their feet and stuff.
I feel like Stanley Kubrick would actually really want to do The Little Mermaid. I feel like that one's pretty brutal with like, and like you'd have a really intense shot of like the tail splitting and the scales falling off.
Yeah, and you could do a lot of like psychological horror with like, you know, the jealousy and the...
Kubrick's not always about psychological horror, but like, you know, he would do some pretty, it would all be practical.
Mm-hmm.
It would all be very practical. Like,
yeah,
they would be underwater.
They would be literally underwater.
Like,
and they'd be like, and he'd be like, no, you're not allowed to breathe. It makes it seem more real. I mean, just talking about Shelley Duvall and Stanley Kubrick for a second, like, I don't know, we can't talk about Shelley Duvall without talking about the actual like torment that she went through with The Shining. That's like the role that she's most known for. And I didn't know this, but when I was researching this, apparently her performance in The Shining was totally canned at first. She won a Golden Razzie for her performance in The Shining. But over time, people have learned like, oh shit, like you can actually see the fear in her eyes and in her face. Like, that is incredible acting. And, you know, the fact that I think I read the scene with the bat, he made her do that like 127 times and like isolated her and just like put her through hell. And I mean, we got a performance of a lifetime out of it, but seeing the state that Shelley Duvall is in now and recently, it's really sad.
Yeah. It is unfortunate what's happened with her, but it is method acting.
It is nice to go back to these fairy tale theaters and, you know, once upon a time when everything was okay.
There's always the rumor of the conspiracy theory that Stanley Kubrick, because of his work on 2001, helped fake the moon landing.
Right.
And like, I tell people like, oh yeah, Stanley Kubrick totally did. And like, really? And you know, egg people on when they believe that. And like, yeah, but you know, if you know anything about Stanley Kubrick, he's very, very practical and everything has to be authentic. Like, yeah, that's going to look so real. It's like, yeah. And Stanley Kubrick, if you know anything about his directing style, he would have made him shoot on location.
Maybe he did film the moon landing, but it
would have been shot on location. Yeah.
It was on the moon.
Exactly. That's his style. If you actually know Stanley Kubrick's style, then sure, fuck it. He helped with the moon landing and they would have shot it on location. But I think that does wrap it. There's not a whole lot left to talk about with this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, they're fairy tales. We're all familiar with the stories. We're not treading any new ground here, but I do think that the actual production and like thinking about this show as a whole is way more interesting than the stories.
I mean, you'll get something out of it, like the Three Little Pigs. It's a short story, so they expanded on it. You had an hour, so some of these.
And Jeff Goldblum is just like, you know.
He's Jeff Goldblum.
No pun intended. He's hamming it up. It was great.
It was great.
His little quirky quips. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, because it's for children. So you can do that. And you can be over the top and be very exaggerated in your acting style. And it's children's theater. It works. I'm going to watch the rest of these. I believe they're out there for streaming somewhere out there.
I did see there is someone compiled a playlist on YouTube of a bunch of popular episodes. So if you want to check it out, you probably find it on YouTube. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would like to watch more. They're short and it's familiar stories with familiar actors. And so it's just kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, they're fun.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram. We are at VH Saturday Podcast. If you would like to send us a message, you want to give us drop us a line, hit us up, vhsaturdaypodcast@gmail.com. The website is in the works. We are also now on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.
And remember,
be kind, rewind.